Hey, this is David Wolinsky, back with another interview from the audio archives of Don't Die. This time I'm bringing to you the second half of my conversation with Niero Gonzalez, who is the founder and publisher of Destructoid, which started in 2006 as his personal blog and is now a popular destination for game reviews, news, and trailers. He and I spoke on July 19th, 2016, and just a quick reminder, if you want to read other interviews I've done, you can go over to nodon'tdie.com, and also you'll see a link to my Patreon, where your support helps me continue this work. And now, here's Niero Gonzalez.
Yeah. I mean, we mentioned your think tank before. We mentioned a little bit about the landscape, but is there more types of writing or different types of stories you would like to see be done? Be it on YouTube or any other platform.
Yeah, there's when we look back to what we call Destructoid's golden archives, there's just a bunch of stuff in there that it's just we don't really have the time to do anymore. Gaming it used to be covering 5 or 6 different consoles or platforms or whatever, and now I can't even read my inbox every day. It's absolutely insane. There's so many nuances to gaming, and there's only so many people I can employ. So we've kind of scaled down long form to inform, just straight up inform.
Yeah.
And I missed some of that kind of slow churn, very and we'll do it sometimes with some nostalgic pieces on AAA games or gems, but yeah, I don't know, that kind of nostalgic long form games writing. There's not a whole lot of market for it. Now that there's enthusiastic short form video.
Well, you mentioned Gamergate was ironic, which I think is a really good way of putting it. But for people who maybe have heard of Gamergate or maybe don't, can you lay that out?
Sure. I always say that Gamergate means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. The part of Gamergate that I like, that I'm for, is the questioning about the transparency in games media, because that was something that was important to me when I was starting out and something that I cared about deeply. And then you have people that use the Gamergate hashtag to further their own agendas, or in some cases just straight up harass people. Women in the games industry took the brunt of that, and that's really sad. And I don't know, it got out of control. It became political. It made careers for some people that are no longer allowed to use Twitter. And I don't know. It's an interesting thing, because I thought that I had what's that Monopoly piece that skip go and continue collect as being part of the system that collectively distrusted traditional games media. It was funny to see people question whether or not Destructoid was on the level, and of course I empathize with it, but I was like, God, do you not know that I hire from your pool? Do you not know that the people that you're backlashing against came exactly from your, we were the rebels, and then we were, there's that classic saying, may you live long enough to become the enemy, or and it happened, and after that I just kind of took 2 steps back. I'm like, this is changing. This is different. I'm old. Do I need to be doing this anymore? And then I started traveling, and I felt a lot better about it.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, you said 2 years. That would make sense.
Yeah, I was just like, well, let me just take 3 steps back, and just kind of let this ride itself out, and I don't really need to be a part of this.
I mean, I saw a thing. I mean, I hope I can ask this without it feeling like I'm pointing a finger at you. But I saw a piece up, like an opinion piece, up on Detroit a little bit ago, where the author was just kind of wondering about whether gamers are being too entitled, and the comments just sort of quickly dissected and dispersed with the notion of quote unquote toxic things being toxic as being pretty meaningless. And I think what they mean is like just people you throw around a word so much it kind of loses its meaning. I mean, I'm sure people in those crosshairs would not think that the notion of something being toxic is meaningless. But I mean, do you ever feel like I mean, maybe you can only speak to Destructoid, but I mean, I've never been full-time at a game site, so I don't know what those conversations are like. I mean, do they ever reflect or sort of talk about, like, are we responsible? Are we kind of contributing to toxicity here? Or are we, are we being as responsible as we should be? Can you speak a little bit to that?
Sure. I thought about that for a really long time, actually, because it bothered me. It's any time that anyone says gamers are the bad people, it's like, oh, I have to write against this. But as that was going on, I think almost at the same time, I saw the movie community have this crazy backlash against Ghostbusters, and this sort of like entitlement. I don't know if that's the right word. Where the diehard fans of the franchise were completely against and felt betrayed that the franchise was going in a different direction with a different cast, and it was all women again. And then so the Venn diagram there is like geek culture, women, and products they have a very, very like a deep connection with, and then you have this really nastiness that flows out of it, whether it's gaming or whether it's movies or sci-fi or comics or anything. That's just kind of like it goes back to that famous Penny Arcade comic where it's like internet plus anonymous login equals like asshole.
Right.
Going back to Twitter and Twitter being like heavily criticized this week for not being able to control its trolls, it just kind of underscores the fact that the internet is still very young. We're still trying to figure out how the internet's supposed to work, and how we protect people, and the fact that when people do feel entitled or wronged by their by the geeky things they love, it just becomes like a maelstrom of just hate, and nobody's really set up to stop that. So we saw that in Gamergate, we saw that with Ghostbusters. We're going to see it time and time again until the internet as a whole matures. Now, I don't really have the answer for that.
Yeah. Well, how do you manage that at a game site to? Because I think media, you want to give people what they want, right? In terms of maintaining their interest, but if you are not responsible, if you don't edge readers a little out of their comfort zone to sort of show them what's familiar isn't always best. I don't know. How does that change? I know you don't have the answer for that, but I'm curious. Internally, being in charge of a game site like that, how do you manage that? What are the kind of internal checks you do, or is this one of those problem types of stories you're talking about that you have in your wiki?
Yeah, it's so I think that the big lesson I've learned over time is that people don't like change. And
yeah, it's painful.
Yeah, it's painful, and change happens slowly, and you have to be patient. So if we look at one of the most sort of successful graduates of the Detroit Community College that I run, we're
the new Dan Harmon show. Yeah,
for real. No, we supply gaming talent to the industry these days, but. a classic example is Jim Sterling, who started out maybe 2008, and at the time, publishing Jim was intense for my editors, Nick Chester and Dale at the time, because Jim wanted to push the envelope like way out of the ballpark. Like we're past the parking lot. He's running across the street with the envelope. He's just he's going to the next town with it, and it was insane to see. If I track back, to see the backlash that those articles would get, and the hatred, and just the outright scorn, because he was not only writing about video games, but he was also writing about social issues, and little by little, by having just the tact and patience and just the grit that Jim has, he became basically the celebrity of the site, and now he's gone on and done really, really well for himself, and that's still his shtick. But at the first time, the first year or so, where he was kind of breaking that into being, it was horrible. It was horrible. It was like we'd get everything from like, oh, you guys are posting sensationalist reviews, to you guys are just running just crazy videos, and 10 years later, that's the norm. That's what you do. that's what every YouTuber aspires to have Jim's success, and it's funny to me because I liked it from the get-go, and I just had to kind of pump the brakes on it for a little bit until people got it, and then people got it. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I mean, like, I know you said in our emails, like, that something you do have a criticism about is, the games writer who's been blogging for 3 years about blowing stuff up, and then suddenly they get all existential about it. You said because suddenly they can't enjoy a good old run of the ultra-violence because it puts into question their politics or whatever.
Yeah.
Can you just talk a little about that? Is that a common thing you feel like you're seeing?
Yeah, that goes back to how games writing becomes homogenous across.
Yeah.
So what happens is, so the thrill of being a games writer is gone, right? It's almost like being in a new relationship. They say like, what is it, like a 3-year itch, right?
The honeymoon phase.
Yeah, the honeymoon phase is gone.
The afterglow is gone.
Yep. You've been to every convention. You've covered all the games. You've got six reviews that you can't release that are either the game has been canceled or something's going on, or you can't hit your ceiling at the publication you're at. And you can't do more creative work. Your editor's not buying the existential piece that you want to write about the game that was released 5 years ago, because no one cares. But you care about it deeply, and maybe you're getting older, and you're that 25-year-old that's at that E3, and you're wondering where's my life? Where's my life going? What does this mean?
You're self-consciously checking your 5 o'clock shadow.
Yeah, and other factors in your life maybe attributing to the idea that maybe all games writing that exists right now is below you, and you want to just educate you want to educate the masses on the brilliance of Bugs Bunny's Crazy Castle and what that means to your to your.
I usually go to like Fester's Quest, but yeah.
So you bring a story like that to me, who has a keen feeling that the average reader just is coming to decide for whether or not the new Doom sucks or not, and you want to go all existential about robot unicorn. There's a time and place for that, but there are writers who want to do that 24/7, and they don't really. They start. I feel like just to put all my cynicism aside, they start to lose track of the average person who is coming home dead tired at 5 o'clock and just wants to figure out what the next game they're going to buy is so they can, just blow off some steam. We have to write that story. And as a small team, I need help writing that story, and I can't fund experimental games writing all the time. And there's and Patreon is really the place for that, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you had said. I was curious, like, if people are ever like. I'm curious, like, what this is going to sound like to people who aren't familiar with the site. Although certainly they can click through, like, to hear that it's like I think you said it was like it's a reformed frat house. I feel like it's akin to like asking maybe Weird Al or something like, when are you going to start doing real music? Do people ask like, when are you going to start doing real writing?
Yeah.
And like make it. Do people do that?
Yeah, I know. They do that all the time. There's this one dude that I cannot stand, and I won't call him out, but he knows exactly who he is.
Yeah, okay.
This guy to me is like the devil of all games writing. Everything he stands for is just pompous and just awful.
Is it me?
No,
is it me?
No.
You could just tell me, and I'm already sitting down.
No. He knows who he is. I've called him.
Well, you had said like you feel a responsibility to keep your site focused on games and not philosophy and existentialism. So is it like weird answering these types of questions? It sounds like this is stuff you think about anyway.
Well, I'm happy. Like, that's stuff that I want to cover just because I want to have like a holistic, like multifaceted publication, because who wouldn't want that? Like, that's so cool. Like, I want to have 10-page stories on what the meaning of all these, all these artists worked on these very, very complex games and what the themes were and all that. But I also want people to read that, and I want the people writing about it to feel good about writing that and being compensated proportionally for it. But in reality, TMZ is outperforming, the bold italic or whatever, just because people want to read about Kim Kardashian's ass more than they want to read about, the entropy that comes with, XYZ topic.
Yeah. So without commenting on any of these specifically, what do you think of places like, Paste's game section as it exists now, or Killscreen, or the Arcade Review, or Zam, or sites that attempt to nurture a more, it sounds pompous to say sophisticated criticism, but I think they're trying to elevate, and there's no way to talk about it without, you know what I mean? But,
no.
So like, what do you think of those as like, personally as a reader, and then also like as a contrast to what you're doing?
As a reader, I love it. I read all of it. As a publisher, I'm straight up jealous that they have the bandwidth and the funding to buy that kind of games writing, because I wish I could. Honestly, my view is like, enjoy it while it lasts, because everybody that's done that kind of either goes out of business or regresses into doing the sort of like, not homogenous games writing, but the stuff that's in demand,
Yeah.
It's a good example is I believe Playboy's games section just got shuttered 2 weeks ago.
Correct.
And they were paying far more than I could pay for long-term editorial, and that
they're gonna owe me $2,000.
You know what I'm saying?
I could corroborate this. Yeah, that's an exorbitant amount of money.
Yeah. So there you go. So here's a company that said, games writing is adolescent. No one that's publishing games writing has realized that games are art and beautiful, and that we're going to be the ones that write these 3,000 words on these games. And they go out of business 6 months later because, dude, we've all tried that. We wish that worked. So yeah, enjoy while you can. And I really hope that somebody figures out how to do it. And the one person that I feel like, or the one company that's figured out how to do it, I feel it's crowdfunding, where you follow your favorite. It goes back to hiring a person and not a concept. where you patron that person, and that kind of work flows out of them, and you're happy for it, and you're willing to pay for it.
Yeah, I mean, although to your point, like I think you mentioned in your emails, and we talked about it before, like, I mean, despite the intensity, despite people's, circles of friends online or offline, like, I think the reality is that the more wrinkles you try to add to writing about this stuff, the more niche it becomes. So, yeah, I mean, you mentioned crowdfunding is one way forward, but then I think, like, it helps if, like, you're kind of a personality, and then on top of that, like, someone can send you a link, because maybe this would be a good story for you is, which is not a statement at all, it's just, like, one of the highest paying gaming Patreons is a company, I don't know how this is legal, they do HD video game hentai porn, and they're making, like, I'm gonna be exaggerating, but I think they make like $20K a month.
Wow.
And granted, that's a lot of. I may be understating it there, but I think we kind of fool ourselves, like thinking like what everyone wants versus like, where the audience is and where the audience is that like that has money that wants to back this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely true, and you need to send me that link for just for research purposes only.
Is this in the transcript I put research in quotes here, or?
No, but I mean it's true, man. That's where it is.
I'll send it to you, and you can send me your professional opinion.
Thank you.
It probably would be actually a good story for you, but yeah, I mean,
no, actually, I know all about that. I was I want to make this point as well. We talk about porn being the one that decided whether or not like Blu-ray or HD DVD was going to be the dominant factor, and so I've been working on this story on how VR is supposed to take off and who's going to pay for it. And I feel like the same thing's going to happen again, where when VR porn gets ridiculously good, then everyone's going to have a VR headset for scientific research purposes only. And what I'm seeing is there are these Patreons popping up for VR porn games. So the gaming community is funding these VR porn games just because. I mean, who, like, what professional person, goes out and raises money and does that? And as opposed to, making VR games about, flying as a hawk over, lush landscapes. And so we're writing about, the hawk over lush landscapes game, and, thousands of people are pouring, $20,000 into the porn game you're talking about.
Yeah.
Like, get real, people.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I had just pitched a story earlier this week, and it got turned down, but I had actually pitched a story about VR porn to the Washington Post. And last week they were interested, but apparently seeing the pitch, they were not interested. So maybe we should talk, because that's like a story I totally want to write about. But I think it's true. I mean, I always joke, like, porn sort of dictated, like, that's why VHS won over beta. But I think, like, it goes all the way back to, like, cave drawings, and, like, that's the reason we live inside, is, like, people were drawing pornographic drawings on the wall. Anyway. But I'm trying to think, because I have a couple other things I did want to get to you, or to ask you about, which is, like, I mean, you sort of mentioned that, you felt like the AAA development cycle is broken. That's kind of the way you put it. And, a lot of the interviews I do, sometimes they're with people in AAA who are between contracts, because I feel like that's something you so rarely get a sense of, is like, what it's like working on those games, project to project rather than like specific project. I mean, you said like, it's killing developers, it's not sustainable, and smaller games can be just as fun. I mean, can you talk a little bit about like maybe like in your years with your site, like what senses have you kind of gotten from the industry that they do acknowledge that it's kind of broken, maybe overly conservative, and also maybe getting ridiculously expensive. Like, do you feel like you've seen people concede that, or is it just basically denial?
Yeah, it's I don't even know if train wreck is the right word. Like, let's talk about like Clover Studios, releasing God Hand, and many people believe that God Hand is, the best game that that studio put out, and they quickly went out of business after that. It's just like it happens every time almost. You have this very, very creative young studio that raises a bunch of money. They put out a AAA game. AAA game does well, or the AAA, or their next AAA game bombs, and then everyone's out of a job and the studio goes down. You don't really have a lot of these companies that have made AAA work, and then that's still the norm, because the game industry has this. I don't know if it's but you always hear the video game industry kind of comparing itself to Hollywood.
Yeah.
In Hollywood, the Hollywood success model is you produce the Mission Impossible movies, and that's what brings home the bacon, and that's what keeps your studio going. And that hasn't really worked for I would say the vast majority of the game industry continues to try to copy that and try to catch lightning in a bottle, and it just blows up.
Do you feel like the game industry learns from its mistakes?
I think that that the game industry is very good about iterating and experimenting, and then repeating its mistakes despite that.
Yeah.
And I don't know why that is. I don't know. I can't guess why. But we run the same story. It's always the same thing. It's what's the classic story? It's like a mobile developer makes like smashing cow game $1 billion. They go out and they get a bunch of money. They hire a bunch of people. Their next 3 games are terrible. They fire everybody. They get acquired by EA. EA loses a bunch of money on the same studio, and then let's do it again.
That is true.
Oh God, I'm tired of writing about it, but I feel like I'm in like a weird loop,
Yeah,
but,
like a Mobius strip. Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm being the obnoxious, games writer that doesn't know what it is to be in the studio, and doesn't know what the investors were like, and we don't know what the original concept of the game or what the features were cut. So in that sense, I try not to be as mean as maybe I was in the beginning. I'm not impervious to the 4-year rule.
Right.
I've seen some stuff, and I write about it from a different perspective now. But it's just sad. It's kind of like when your best friend keeps dating like the same like bum person. It's like, stop dating that person. You always get your heart broken. They do it the other, they do it again. How do you stop that?
Well, what about like blacklisting stuff? I don't know if this is really like a secret anymore at this point. It's sort of like it's kind of a thing where I think people know about it, but there's never really like places to necessarily write about it or talk about it. And when it is done, it's done in like a really incredulous way. You did say that like that does kind of get your goat, is like when devs or publishers will get mad at you for stating an opinion and then blacklist you.
Yep. Happened to me 2 months ago.
You said you have to deal with it like 4 times a year. Yeah. So, feel free if you want to name companies or whatever. That's fine. It's not what I'm asking for. But like, what happened 2 months ago, or like, what's the lamest example of this happening? Because it's happened to me a fair amount as well. I think it's inevitable.
Yeah, it's just part of being in the industry. The first time it happens to you, you're livid and you want to go full Watergate on it and tell everybody, and you won't just be super high maintenance and obnoxious, and then no one's going to ever want to work with you after that.
Right.
So I used to call out people. I don't do it anymore. It's just, it happens. It's painful for me because I'm kind of straddling advertising side as well as the publishing side. So I don't sell advertising directly, but I have a relationship with an agency that does that for us.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll get the call first, and they'll say, well, XYZ pulled their ad campaign because you guys said the naughty thing. I'm like, oh, well, sorry, we said the naughty thing. You know, we're in business because we say the naughty things. Like, you know, we'll get them the next time around. You know, and by the way, everybody reads this, and they probably need to be on our website, so they'll get over it. And you just kind of take a hard stance, and they get over it. And you know, 3 months later, they'll come back usually. Or the person that was really, really upset at you will get promoted, and it's no longer their toothache. And the next person comes in and says, yeah, Destructoid, you read that. and then we're working together again. That's exactly what happened 2 or 3 months ago. You know, we had a junior person who came in and was like, video games media is wrong, and I'm gonna fix this. And they're like, blogs cannot say what they want to say about our game, and I'm gonna be the first person in the gaming industry that sets the blog straight, and we're gonna blacklist them. And I was like, good luck with that, bro. And they'll get over it. Whatever, I don't care.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I did want to ask you a little bit. I don't actually know too much about like how hustling and getting advertising on a site works, but that was something you said that we could get into later, and like you said, it has changed. For people who just like, well, I guess like just the general level, like, can you just sort of talk about that? I mean, I don't really know how it's changed, and how does that sort of how does that impact like the way the site? It sounds like you're not even letting that enforce the types of things you write about or what you say, but
yep.
How has that changed, or did there used to be that expectation that it wouldn't inform what you wrote, or can you just talk about it a little bit?
Sure. Well, you know, going back to why the magazines failed, it used to be that the sure thing was you had the brand name magazine, and you basically had the gimme ad campaigns that would just come in, and you know your magazine is on autopilot. You're gonna continue to hear from EA and Sony and Microsoft, and you're gonna continue to make money. At a pivotal point, the ad agency said, well, people are reading the internet now, so we don't do magazines. And the same thing is happening for me, where I got comfortable 7 years in saying, oh, you know, we're the one of the top video game blogs, and we're going to get certain ad campaigns for certain AAA games, and everything's going to be fine. And the money went to YouTube, or the money went to this thing called programmatic that I'm waking up every morning and trying to figure out what the heck is going on. So what's happening is companies like the New York Times would, go to work and say, oh, we compete against the Washington Post or whatever. And now these traditional media companies, and I'm a very, very small version of one of them, they don't even know where their competition is coming from, because advertising is now completely performance-based. And what I mean by performance is you get cookied around the internet, and Amazon knows that you're really interested in a ceiling fan, and whether you're on NFL.com or Destructoid.com, you're seeing advertisements about ceiling fans. So this has completely changed. So brand advertising never had a chance, really. And it's all going away to these kind of like these trading desks. So whereas maybe 4 years ago we would get like a direct buy traditionally for advertising, or the agency would get it, and I would see it when it goes live on the site. I wouldn't be part of these processes. Now I have no idea. I have no idea who advertises on Detroit. That the ad that I see is not the ad that the person 3 houses away sees, because it's all AI and deep learning and all that stuff that's completely going to revolutionize the advertising industry. And I'm just kind of like caught in the crossfire between advertising being invasive and aggressive, and then the consumers rejecting this and installing ad block. like I'm just trying to write about Pokemon. It's like where do I land in between this? So I'm, and what is the future of my company when I'm relying on these suppliers and I don't even know who my customers are?
Yeah, so I just have a couple more here for you, and I appreciate you making the time again. So I mean, I don't know if I'm incorrect in saying, but it's been my perception that, Destructoid's always kind of had, I know you've had many, or a couple openly gay writers, at least before I think this kind of thing was as contentious as it seems to be in games, as far as like policing what kinds of voices people should be hearing.
Sure.
So, I mean, operating that way and having those kinds of perspectives, I mean, how do you think that helps sort of bring a different sort of eye to covering games, I guess sort of before Gamergate and after Gamergate?
Yeah, I guess it wasn't like intentional.
Yeah.
I went to high school and I had gay friends. Like I always grew up around gay people. There's, living close to Miami Beach, you see gay people and you have gay friends. It's just, so of course, when I started a business, I was just going to have a bunch of, all different types of people. It wasn't something that I tried to like curate or, well, like I said, I did curate it in the sense that I felt like certain people's voice was unique, but it wasn't always like, we have to have the black guy or we have to have the gay guy, and then
right.
And this is a good gaming site. It just kind of happened automatically, just because I guess I didn't try too hard, or I didn't try to filter. It's cool that people over the years have come forward and said that they appreciated that we ran the company like that, and there was always somebody on the site that represented them. Yeah, it's just cool. Like, yeah.
Well, why do you? Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's just I wish I had more to say about it, but
no, it's okay.
It's like a thing that like I accidentally did good and okay.
Well, I mean, I'm curious. Like, why do you think Destructoid has been successful? I mean, do you think it would be successful if it was starting out now?
I think we would struggle more. When we started out, like I was really lucky that my co-founder was very technical. So some sites would get really, really popular, and then WordPress at the time didn't really have like high traffic capabilities, or it was very, very expensive to scale. So, we would catch, we would break a headline, and we'd be able to serve that article to the world without, having the site, buckle. And you could come back every day, and we would still be up. We still struggle with traffic, now and then, but I feel like now those tools are so mature, and when I started before YouTube, so like you couldn't just upload video to your site. When I was embedding tags on my site, and I had live video on my blog and didn't have to pay for it, I was like, oh my god, I'm getting away with murder. Coming from a web development background, like serving video and hiring a video company to encode and serve your video, that was super expensive. And the fact that I could have like game trailers on my blog, while Ziff Davis was paying $10,000 a day to encode their Windows media files, which ultimately was a reason why companies like Game Trailers, which are much more funded than I am, failed. They didn't really embrace the whole YouTube thing. It's a lot easier now to publish, and it's a lot more, I don't know if the commoditize is the right word, but you can find it. Like, I don't know that we would have it as easy as we did, but it wasn't easy back then. I want to say that, like, having the grit and tenacity and insanity that drove me to really, really, really want to be a part of this industry would get me in here somehow. And I think that that's true for anybody that wants to work in the industry. But I don't know.
So but how does the site reach a place where I think I read like people have tried to acquire you, right?
Sure.
So how does that happen? What are those conversations like? Why haven't you?
Man, I love what I do.
Not saying you should. Just obviously, when you're starting off, planning a couple posts on both sides of your day job, like it's not really a thing you think will ever happen.
Yeah, and people told me all the time, year one, like, oh, there's so many gaming sites. Like, why are you starting a gaming site? And why did you choose this font for your logo? It doesn't look like the Nintendo font. You should choose the Nintendo font. A very, very successful blogger told me that, by the way. I have that email printed and framed.
Good.
Yeah.
Good advice.
Yeah, it was like one of the first people I met at E3. Like, he sent me a follow-up email. So I asked him, take a look at my blog and what do you think? And it was just like the worst advice I'd ever received. And I was like, oh my God, this guy's successful and telling me this stuff. I'm gonna print this.
Also, add more frames to your website.
Yeah, not enough scroll bars.
Yeah, no. More flashing text.
Yeah, not a lot of you don't have enough blink tags.
We're old.
Yeah, we're old. We're talking about that's like Netscape stuff.
Yeah, but like how does that happen? And like what do people like? What do they? Is it? I don't know. What is that like?
What is it like to have people want to buy your website?
Yeah, I understand. Like it probably traffic is good and advertising is good, but like why do you think they're approaching you and what are they offering?
So I guess going back to the reason I haven't sold is it's very much like a lifestyle business for the whole team. Like we don't really answer anybody, and it's very creatively fulfilling to just kind of wake up and kind of like choose the fate of your day. That's a lot of fun for me. Like today I got to make fun of how stupid people look in VR. And that was my morning. There's a bunch of like Shutterstock, like stock photos of like people wearing VR headsets in a swimming pool. And I was like, oh God, I didn't have to run that by an editor. I just put it up and that was fun.
Yeah.
I'm already having a good day. No, what typically happens is like the vast majority of games media is owned by cable operators. And I'm not even being cynical. Like if you look at who's invested in Vox Media, it's CBS. Who's invested in other gaming sites, it's going to be 10 companies, and it's going to be maybe less than 100 people control the advertising that you see on
Skittles.
Yeah, it's like when you go to the chocolate aisle and you see like 15 different brands or like 50 different brands. It's like that's made by 4 companies, and they're 30 subsidiaries. That's the scale, and that's the amount of money that it requires to pull off this games media stuff. And I don't particularly represent like an insane amount of traffic to where I'm a problem for anybody. Like I'm considered medium.
Sure.
I'm not in the top 100. So it's enough to where I can have a staff, and it's also enough to where if these big advertising companies have a bunch of overflow that might be a good fit for a gaming audience, where they can buy a company like mine and just kind of like run the faucet in my direction, and they would make money. This is traditionally what's known as media arbitrage or digital arbitrage. I think it's almost like day trading, where I think it's like not illegal yet, but like it's still legal. Where you basically have agencies controlling the cost of ads, and you have these trading desks these exchanges buying these assets. It's a really fascinating thing if you want to Google it. It's called digital arbitrage. That's what's that.
Yeah, it sounds a little like price fixing.
It basically is, and it's legal right now. Sad. So when you have that stuff going on, and you have, and I'm not saying this happens at every publication.
Right.
I think the publications that ultimately win are the ones that don't disrespect their audience. But you get in the rooms with people where they're like, well, we figured out the algorithm where if we figure out the most profitable page on your web page, then we can change the article a little bit and we can drive more. We can buy a bunch of advertising that goes to that page and we can resell that and everybody can make money. And I'm just kind of nodding my head like I didn't sign up for this shit. Like that doesn't, like, if I'm like to the point where I'm completely burned out and I don't enjoy the movie, the games industry, and I just want to collect a check and live on a mountain far away, I'll sell my company. Or if it gets to the point where I just don't understand the industry anymore and like this just advertising's gotten weird and I can't make crowdfunding work, I would sell my company. But for now, I'm just loving it. It's just cool.
Cool. Well, I'll ask you one last question, which is intentionally broad. So please make of this whatever you want. Go with it wherever you will. What do you think video games have accomplished?
42.
Of course.